Hey there, dear listeners. Today's story, The Badge of Policeman Orun. Let's begin. It cannot be denied that man and woman have looked upon one another from the first time and become instantly enamored. It's a risky process. The love at first sight, before she has seen him in Brad Street or he sees her in the curl papers. But these things do happen. And one instance must from the theme from for this story, though not, thank heaven, to the overshadowing or more vital and important subjects such as drink, policemen, horses, and earl earldoms. During a certain war, a troop calling itself the Gentle Riders rode into history and one or two ambuscades. The Gentle Riders were recruiting from recruited from the ar- aristocrat aristocracy from the aristocracy of the wild men of the West and the wild men of the aristocracy of the of the East. In hockey, there there is in hockey there is little telling them one from another, so they became good friends and comrades all around. Ellsworth Ramson, whose old knickerbocker descent atoned for his modest rating at only 10 millions, ate his canned beef gaily by the campfires of the Gentle Riders. The war was a great lark to him, so that he scarcely regretted Paul and Plunkett shed. One of the troopers was a well set up, affable, cool young man who called himself Orun. To this young man, Ramson took an especial liking. The two rode side by side during the famous the two rode side by side during the famous mooted uphill charge that was disputed so hotly at the time by the Spenders, Spaniards, and afterwards by the Democrats. After the war, Ramson came back to his polo and shed. One day, a well set up, affable, cool young man distribute, disturbed, disturbed him at his club, and he and Oren were soon pounding each other and pounding each other and exchanging opprobrious, epithets, epithets, after the manner of long lost friends. Oren looked seedy and out of luck and perfectly contented. But it seemed that his content was only apparent. Get me a job, Ramson, he said. I've just handed the barber my last shilling. No trouble at all, said Ramson. I know a lot of men who have banks and stores and things downtown. Any particular line you fancy? Yes, said Orun with a look of interest. I took a walk in York Central Park this morning. I'd like to be one of those bobbies on a horseback. That would be about the ticket. Besides, it's the only thing I could do. I can ride a little, and the fresh air suits me. Think you could lend that for me? Ramson was sure that he could, and in a very short time he did. And they who were not above looking at mounted policemen might have seen a well set up, affable, cool young man on a prancing chestnut steed attending to his duties along the driveways of the park. And now, at the extreme risk of wearing all gentlemen, and now at the extreme risk of wearing all gentlemen who carry leather fob chains and elder ladies who, but no, grandmother herself yet thrills at foolish, immortal Romeo. There must be a hint of love at first sight. It came just as Ramson was strolling into Fifth Avenue from his club a few doors away. A motor car was creeping along foot by foot, impeded by a fresh, 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 freshet of vehicles that filled the street. In the car was a chauffeur and an old gentleman with snowy side whiskers and a Scotch plate cap, which could not be worn while automobiling except by a personage. Not even a wine agent would dare to do it. But these two were not so. But these two were of no consequence, except perhaps for the guiding of the machine and the paying for it. At the old gentleman's side sat a young lady more beautiful than pomegranate blossoms, more exquisite than the first quarter moon youth twilight through the tops of all ole, oleanders, folianders, tops of oleanders. Ramson saw her and knew his fate. He could have flung himself under the very wheels that conveyed her, but he knew that would be the last means of attracting her attention of those who ride in motor cars. Slowly the after passed, and if we place the poets above the autocids, autocid, auto, autoists, autoists, carried the heart of Ramzan with it. He was a large city of millions, and many women who at a certain distance appear to resemble pomegranate blossoms. Yet he hoped to see her again. For each for each one for each one fancies that his romance has its own tutelary guardian and divinity. Luckily for Ramzan's peace of mind, there came a diversion in the guise of a reunion of the gentle riders of the city. There were not many of them, perhaps a score. And there was a wassail, wassail, and things to eat, and speeches, and the Spaniard was bearded again in recapitulations. Recapitulation. And when daylight threatened, 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 threatened them, the survivors prepared to depart. But some remained upon the battlefield. One of these was Trooper Auron, who was not seasoned to potent liquids. His legs declined to fulfill the obligations they had sworn to the policeman department. I'm stewed, Ramson, said Orun to his friend. Why do they build hotels that go round and round like Catherine wheels? Catherine, Catherine wheels. They are, they all, they will all take away my shield and break me. I can think and talk consecutively, consecutively, but I stammer with my feet. I've got to go on duty in 3 hours. The jig is up, Ramson. The jig is up, I tell you. Look at me, said Ramson. Who was who was his smiling self pointing to his own face? Whom do you see here? Go fell, said Orun Deasley. Go old Ramson. Not so, said Ramson. You see, mounted policeman Orun. Look at your face. No, you can't do that without a glass, but look at mine and think of yours. How much alike are we? As two French table d'horte dinners. With your badge on your horse, in your uniform, will I charm nursemaids and prevent the glass from growing under people's feet in the park this day. I will save your badge in your honor. Besides having the jolliest lark I've been blessed with since we left Spain. Promptly on time the counterfeit presentment of mounted policeman Auron single-footed in the into into the park on his chestnut steed. In a uniform, two men who were unlike will look like two who somewhat resemble each other in feature and figure will appear in as twin brothers. So Ramson trotted down the bridle path and enjoyed himself hugely. So few real pleasures do 10 millionaires have. Along the driveway in the early morning spun a Victoria drawn by a pair of fiery bays. There was something foreign about the affair, for the park is rarely used in the morning except unimportant people who love to be healthy, poor, and wise. In the wake in the vehicle sat an old gentleman with snowy side whiskers and Scotch plaid cap, which could not be worth while driving except by a personage. At his side sat a lady of Ramsden's heart, the lady who looked like pomegranate blossoms at the Gibbons Gibbous moon. Ramsden met them coming. At the instant of their passing her eyes looked into his, and but for the ever coward heart of a true lover, he could have sworn that she flushed a faint pink. He trotted on 20 yards and then wheeled his horse at the sound of runaway hoofs. The bays had bottled. Ramson sat his chestnut after the Victoria like a shot. There was work cut out of the impersonator of Policeman Orum. The chestnut wrenched alongside the off-bay 30 seconds after the chase began, rolled his eye back at Ramson, and said in the only manner to open to policemen's horses. Well, you duffer, are you going to do your share? You're not Oron, but it seems to me if you'd lean to the right, you could reach the of the foolish, reins of the foolish, slow-running bay. Ah, you are all right. Oron couldn't have done it more neatly. The runaway team was tug, tugged to an inglorious halt by Ramsden's tough muscles. The driver released his hands from the wrapped reins, jumped from his seat, and stood at the heads of the team. The chestnut, approving his new rider, danced and pranced, revealing, revealing acutely the subdued bass. Ramsden, lingering, was dimly conscious of a vague, impossible, unnecessary old gentleman in a Scotch coat who talked incessantly about something. And he was acutely conscious of a pair of violet eyes that would have drawn Saint Puritas, Puritas, Puritas from his iron pillar, or whatever the illusion is, and of the lady's smile and look, a little frightened, but a look that, but a look that, with the ever coward heart of the true lover, he could not yet construe. They were asking his name and bestowing upon him well bred bread. Thanks for his heroic deed. And the Scotch cap was especially bubbling and insistent. But the equivalent appeal was in the eyes of the lady. Oof. A little thrill of satisfaction ran through Ramson, through Ramson, because he had a name to give with which, without undue pride, was worthy of being spoken in high places, and a small fortune with which, with due pride, he could live at his end without disgrace. He opened his lips to speak and closed them again. Who was he? Mounted Policeman Aaron. The badge and the honor of his comrade, comrade, were in his hands. If Ellsworth Ramsden, 10 millionaire, and Knickerbocker had just rescued pomegranate blossoms and Scotch cap from possible death, where was Policeman Oron? Of his beat exposed, disgraced, discharged. A love had come, but before that, there had been something that demanded, demanded pres- precedence. The fellowship of men of battlefields fight, fighting an alien foe. Ramsden touched his cap, looked between and Chestnut's ears, and took refuge in vernacularity. Don't mention it, he said stolidly. We policemen are paid to do the things. It's our duty. And he rode away cruising noblis oblique, but knowing he could never have done anything else. At the end of the day, Ramsden sent the chestnut to his stable and went to Orion's room. The policeman was again a well set up, affable, cool young man who sat by the window smoking cigars. I wish you and the rest of the police force and all the badges, horses, brass buttons, and men who can drink 2 glasses of brut without getting upset were at the devil, said Ramsden feelingly. Feel, feelingly. Orrin smiled with evident satisfaction. Good old Ramsden, he said faintly. I know all about it. They trailed me down and cornered me here 2 hours ago. There was a little row at home, and I cut sticks just to slow them. I don't believe I told you that my governor was the Earl of Ardsley. Funny you should bob against them in the park. If you damaged the horse of mine, I will never forgive you. I'm going to buy him and take him back with me. Oh, yes. And I think my sister, Lady Angela, you know, wants particularly for you to come up to the hotel with me this evening. Didn't lose my badge, did you, Ramsden? I've got to turn that in the headquarters when I resign. Right, guys. Thank you for listening to me today and see you tomorrow. Thanks.